The zipper stopped halfway up her back. For a brief second, the room felt too quiet, too heavy with unspoken truths. The single father standing behind his boss gently finished, zipping the delicate dress, his fingers trembling slightly. Then he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's not coming." The words seemed to freeze the air. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves emotional stories, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story that could touch your heart. Emily Carter had built her life on strength. As the CEO of a rapidly growing company in the city, she was known for her composure, intelligence, and unshakable confidence. Her employees admired her, competitors feared her, and investors trusted her without question. But beneath the polished exterior and perfectly tailored suits was a woman who had learned to survive disappointment by simply refusing to show it. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was supposed to be her wedding rehearsal dinner. The elegant ballroom upstairs buzzed with distant laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music drifting down the hallway. Guests had arrived, friends had traveled across the country, and decorations filled every corner of the venue with warm light and delicate white roses. Everything had been planned to perfection. Except for one thing: the groom. Emily stood frozen in front of the mirror in the bridal suite, her wide blue eyes staring at her reflection as if the answer might somehow appear there. The white lace dress fit her perfectly, but suddenly it felt heavy, like armor she could barely carry. Behind her stood Daniel Reyes. Daniel wasn't supposed to be part of this moment. He was simply the company's quiet operations manager, a widowed single father who had been working late to finalize some last-minute reports before the weekend. When Emily's zipper had gotten stuck and the bridal assistant rushed out in panic to find help, Daniel had been the closest person in the hallway. Now he stood there, realizing he had just delivered the kind of news that could shatter someone. Daniel knew something about shattered lives. 3 years earlier, he had lost his wife in a sudden car accident, leaving him alone with a 5-year-old daughter named Sophia. Overnight, his world had collapsed into grief, bills, sleepless nights, and the constant fear that he might fail the one person who needed him most. There had been days when he barely held things together, but somehow, Sophia's laughter had always pulled him back. Emily slowly exhaled, her shoulders dropping slightly as the reality settled in. She had suspected something was wrong all afternoon. The unanswered calls, the vague messages, the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. Still, hearing it out loud made the truth impossible to ignore. Her fiancé had left. No dramatic argument, no explanation. Just a short message sent to Daniel earlier that evening when the groom had called the office looking for Emily. Daniel had answered the phone, unaware that he would become the messenger of heartbreak. The message had been simple: "I can't do this." For a long moment, Emily said nothing. The silence between them stretched across the room like fragile glass. But then, something unexpected happened. She didn't cry. Instead, a small, almost tired smile appeared on her lips. Because deep down, Emily realized something she hadn't been ready to admit before. She had spent months trying to convince herself that the relationship was perfect, even when small cracks had begun to appear. She had ignored the hesitation in his voice, the emotional distance, the feeling that she was carrying the weight of the future alone. And now, the truth had finally arrived. Daniel shifted awkwardly, unsure if he should stay or leave. He felt like an accidental witness to a deeply private moment. But Emily surprised him again. Instead of breaking down, she turned around slowly and looked directly at him. There was pain in her eyes, but there was also something else. Relief. Not the relief of someone escaping embarrassment. The relief of someone realizing they had just been spared the wrong life. Daniel suddenly understood something about the woman everyone called fearless. Her strength wasn't about never falling apart. It was about choosing how to stand up again. Minutes later, Emily walked into the ballroom. The music stopped. Every conversation faded into stunned silence as dozens of guests turned to see the bride standing alone. No groom beside her. No explanation written on the carefully printed program. just Emily. The room held its breath. Then, with surprising calm, she stepped onto the small stage near the head table and thanked everyone for coming. Her voice remained steady, though her eyes shimmered under the warm lights. She explained simply that life sometimes changes plans without warning, and tonight was one of those moments. But she also said something no one expected. She said that while the evening hadn't become the wedding she imagined, it could still become a celebration of the people who had supported her through every chapter of life. And just like that, the tension in the room began to melt. Friends approached her with hugs. Family members wiped tears from their eyes. The band slowly resumed playing soft music, and what had started as a broken evening turned into something strangely beautiful. From the corner of the room, Daniel watched quietly. He hadn't meant to stay, but somehow he couldn't leave. Not when he had seen the moment a person chose courage over collapse. Later that night, after most guests had gone home, Emily found Daniel standing near the exit. She thanked him, not just for helping with the dress, but for telling the truth. Because sometimes honesty arrives like a storm, but leaves behind clearer skies. Daniel simply nodded, thinking about Sophia waiting at home, about how fragile life could be, and about how strange it was that two people carrying different kinds of heartbreak could share the same quiet understanding. Neither of them realized that this unexpected night was not the end of something. It was the quiet beginning of a new chapter neither had planned. But before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment right now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. And I have one small request for you. Before the story ends, write in the comments, kindness always finds its way back. Because sometimes the most beautiful endings begin with the moments we thought would break us. And somewhere in the city that night, a single father drove home to hug his daughter, while a woman who had almost married the wrong man stood on a quiet balcony realizing that losing something can sometimes be the greatest gift life gives us.